5 historical ceasefires that failed to bring peace. 1. The Tet Truce of 1968. Before New Year's Day, Pope Paul VI called for a truce. He managed to convince South Vietnam and the US. They declared a 24-hour ceasefire. However, the Viet Cong and North Vietnam ignored it. They ambushed South Vietnamese Marines 10 minutes after midnight. The Viet Cong also attacked a US Army fire support base near Saigon. That was the end of the truce. 2. The Astana Process. The Astana Process was a series of talks held in Astana, Kazakhstan. The idea was to negotiate an end to the Syrian civil war. In 2015, the UN Security Council called for an immediate ceasefire. The resolution was ignored on the ground. Assad's forces continued to conduct airstrikes against the rebels. The rebels continued to attack Damascus. Russia and Turkey agreed to create a buffer zone in Idlib. It didn't do much to stop the bloodshed, however. The peace process ended with the toppling of Assad in 2024. 3. The 2023 Gaza War ceasefire. Israel and Hamas agreed to a Qatar-mediated ceasefire in November. The initial agreement stipulated a 4-day break in fighting. 50 Israeli hostages held in Gaza and 150 Palestinian prisoners in Israel were to be released. Less than a week later, the truce ended. Hamas launched rockets into Sderot, accusing Israel of sabotaging the deal. Israel responded with air raids on Gaza. By December 2nd, negotiations had broken down. The Israeli delegation abruptly left Qatar. Hamas announced they would not release any more hostages. In spite of several subsequent ceasefires, the war is still not over. 4. The Gulf War ceasefire of 1991. Operation Desert Storm formally ended on February 28th. The next day, rebellion against Saddam Hussein broke out across Iraq. The US had promised to support the rebels, but did not. As a result, 25,000 to 100,000 Iraqis were killed by Hussein's forces. The Gulf War was technically over, yet no peace treaty followed the ceasefire agreement. In June 1993, the US conducted a series of airstrikes against Iraq. This was followed by Operation Desert Strike in 1996. In 1998, the US bombed Baghdad during Operation Desert Fox. The war remained in effect until 2003, when US and UK forces invaded Iraq. 5. The 2020 Global Ceasefire. This was the United Nations response to the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 23rd, Secretary General Guterres called for a global ceasefire. A month later, 170 UN members signed a non-binding statement in support of the appeal. A week after that, the UN Security Council passed a resolution. It demanded a general and immediate global cessation of hostilities for at least 90 days. The resolution failed to stop any ongoing conflicts. On September 27th, a new war erupted in Nagorno-Karabakh.